Chapter 185. Bickering in front of the princes would be a shame. Refusing advice from an undisputed master would be foolish. I must show unity with my kin since we are surrounded by strangers. If I repeat all those arguments often enough, it will distract me from Khadi's endless litany of observations. A master must praise publicly, but chide in private. The rule is even more important when dealing with competitive apex predators born with a tendency for remorseless violence. Truly, the old progenitor lacks bedside manners, and yet his insight is particularly brilliant. Perhaps this is why I tolerate his incessant babbling. You have the method of one who has grown and acquired tools too quickly. Your style is cobbled together, your method sloppy. You are also missing a key element of your fighting style. What is it? I hiss under my breath. Khadi's face appears in front of me, the man sometimes capable of moving without me noticing. Are you ignoring me, disciple? Has it occurred to you that we are walking through winter and that now is not the best time to get into an in-depth discussion about my many apparent failings? We glare at each other. Or rather, I glare while he stares fixedly into a point that could be my eyes or nothing at all. Perhaps I have been a bit abrupt in my approach. You think? I will make no apologies. You can punish me as you see fit when you can defeat me. I have never been good with manners and customs and all those masks and ribbons people wear on their heart to interact with each other. You can choose to care about image and reputation, or not, but you'll listen. Your success is too important for me to stop. Have you considered that you would save much time and effort by acting according to the way the world is, and not the way you think the world should be? We care about those masks and ribbons you mentioned and we cannot stop caring, because they tie us back to our origins, yes? Our human, social nature? You know they are a distraction. They are the reason why Nirari and his mother have not turned the world into a series of heavily fortified parochial city-states where no one leaves their house after dark, or do you doubt it? I do not doubt it. You are also the first in history with a chance to match and stop the old monster. I know all of this. I am simply not capable of caring, not with all of eternity to practice. Kindly allow me to teach you, disciple. Even if you should hate me, let me guide you. As I said, you can punish me all you like after your victory is complete. You need to win first. It sounds like a supplication. I stop, the two princes imitating me with eerie coordination. Their good manners allow us this moment. Khadi's is the very image of the doomed artist, complete with hooded eyes and sickly body. Resignation haunts his gaunt features. Perhaps he speaks the truth, and he genuinely cannot play the delicate dance we keep between our instincts and the veneer of civilization. Perhaps his singular drive protected him from the savagery that comes with a lack of attachment. Are you telling me that your lack of social graces is beyond your control? I could do better, but it would take much effort with little result. My time is better spent in pursuits where I do excel. Then you will address me as Ariane of the Nirari as a sign of respect, and I, in turn, will ignore the occasional offense. Are we in agreement? Does this mean you will listen and commit to your training? So long as it does not violate previous agreements, yet, I agree. The terms are large enough that I can wriggle out of them should he go too far. I accept, Ariane of the Nirari. Now, which part of your arsenal are you currently missing? I breathe out. I fight with a handgun as well, usually. A pistol that can shoot several times in a row. You fight vampires with a pistol? He asks, aghast. Technically a revolver. And to great effect. Khadi's does not comment. We start moving again. Do you have it here? Unfortunately, no. My armor used to interfere with its functionment. A shame we cannot include it in your training. No matter, there are other aspects of your style to work on. And why are you flailing around so much? I was informed I was aggressive and unpredictable. Yes, I can see how all this flailing around can be perceived that way. There is a fine line between being unpredictable and being suboptimal, and I fear you cross it too often. Your Magna Arca also needs some work. How long can you keep it active? I do not know. Cadiz freezes mid-step. His expression is one of unmitigated horror. I beg your pardon. Fights have always ended before I would lose focus. And you have not tested your limits. Ever? You know they vary with mindset, not to mention I have been growing in strength recently and can hold it longer. You will now use your Magna Arca and keep it active until I tell you to stop, or you are on the verge of collapse. I accept. My essence expands into the usual sphere, now larger than ever before. I immediately grow a root under Cadiz in an attempt to trip him, but he effortlessly sidesteps it. Oh, excellent initiative, Ariane of the Nirari. Continue doing so. Perhaps then you will wield those branches of yours with more agility than a toddler holds their bottle. What an infuriating man. I am starting to believe someone tossed him through that portal, after all. While the old twig grumbles under his breath, I concentrate back on our current predicament. Rebus outmaneuvered us in the first trial to succeed him, and I have no reason to believe the second would be different. I hate so much to be so out of my depth that even the most basic task cannot be completed with any degree of surety. When we freed the Fae from the fortress, it was Sanaed's project, but the details of the execution were clarified under my responsibility. The lack of control frustrates me. Perhaps some training would at least distract me from the deadly game. I walk up to Sanaed, finding him despondent. It irks me. I am starting to think you were happier on Earth, Sanaed. The prince blinks, as if he had never considered the question. I was perhaps more light-hearted. You are right. My worries are getting to me. What concerns you? The second task? Sanaed casts an annoyed glance at Cadras, but the Hair-Fae ignores us, his attention devoted to our surroundings. It is true that we are still in winter's domain, and yet the weather is more clement, somehow. The red fruits hanging from nearby frosted bushes are the crimson of ripeness, not blood. I can smell a hearth smoke on the wind. Besides, my Magna Arca shows no threats anywhere close. I am concerned about the second task, true, Sanaed says in English. The message feels more diluted now that there is no objective meaning behind the words. And something the Queen said, he continues. But there is more. I do not know if I should burden you with this. Better than burdening me with this dark mood of yours. The least you could do to redeem yourself is to entertain me, not present me with this gloomy air of doomed hero. Soon you shall write about ravens and casks and stare outward the battlement of some windswept fortress, cursing your cruel fate. I cannot wait for you to become fluent in Lycian, so that I may nag you in your native language. Oh, Purpot, I would rather be nagged by your beautiful voice for 100 years than serenaded an hour by Voidmore's greatest beauty. Finally, some Sanaed. Wait. I add with suspicion, given the local proclivities, it would not happen to be some sort of tentacled, eight-breasted creature? Because Noel has the head of a fly above a human mouth, and I have to admit, I have seen better. I have no idea. And yes, I am surprised you would tolerate him. Strange appearances are tolerable, it is smell I cannot abide. Have I ever mentioned werewolf gatherings? I hate werewolf gatherings. I can always assess how many of them have engaged in coitus right before they attend. It reminds me of my younger years. As much as I want to learn more about your mysterious past, I believe details are not needed right now. As you say. Suddenly, Cadiz throws a snowball at me, and I lean forward to dodge. I felt him in my sphere. Good, but for the sake of practice, please use roots instead. We are not training now in the middle of winter. Please wait until we are out of this death trap. We are the death trap, Ariane of the Nirari. There is a time for everything. Now, we are concluding our agreement with the Seekers. Deploying my Magna Arca is enough to start with. Cadiz relents, but I dread the coming weeks before the dragon hunt. We arrive at the portal while night falls. From this angle, it appears as a circle of frozen ice, like a wave caught as it hits a rock. A pair of winter fae let us through without interruption. I cast one last glance at the frozen lake and the castle hidden beneath. Despite the sphere's apparent hostility, there is a certain beauty to it I regret leaving behind. There is so much to explore here, but I have so little time for now. I also know that the spheres are so vast and numerous one could spend a millennium traveling through them without growing tired. Immortality can be so frustrating at times. The passage of time will not kill me, but it can certainly stop me from living. Ah, well. Oh. Rather than the warehouse I expected on the other side, we are drawn into a cathedral-like structure of stone and crystal. Immediately, the bone-deep chill of winter fades, replaced by the crimson presence of the moon above. I lose control of my magna arca, my essence contracting under the pressure of the one who is receiving us. A guard of princesses and princes in silver garb wait in cold silence, occupying the space between massive diamond columns. Facing us is a throne of red glass in the semblance of a flock of ravens taking off, their red wings frozen forever mid-motion. The sovereign sits on it with impeccable poise. It feels wrong. She should be lounging. Cadras does not stop, so we follow him to the steps leading up. I spot my free gladiators and the flutterlings to the side, the latter held in a cage, which I find aggravating. The prince kneels with respect, hair ears still jutting up. The queen tilts her head ever so slightly. Tell us. Our task is finished. The world is preserved. They acquitted themselves of the task to my satisfaction. We are pleased. The debt is almost repaid. Sinead glares, and I recoil in horror. What does she mean, almost? The sovereign stands slowly, and I resist the urge to fall. The pressure coming from her is oppressive. Her hand opens to reveal a strange device made of crystal, a handle ending with hooks around the small sphere. Oh no. Essence will join form. This is not what we agreed upon. I said we would retrieve memories. You did not deny us when we offered this change of the terms. One is a lie, not a lie. Her maker will not allow it, Sinead says. The full attention of the sovereign falls on me. I suddenly exist much more, and cannot move, and intensely wish I were somewhere else. Our watcher is a jealous one, Cadiz says. Be quiet. The world itself falls silent. If I were to scream right now, the sound would decline its own existence. We have no transaction with you. Cadiz handled, the sovereign inspects me. The experience is both intimate and rather upsetting. Eventually, she relents. You have a jealous patron. Your prince does not. He will become part of us. A missing eye. Dulled emotions? This is not what we agreed, I state. We would help you return memories once, not be drafted into your court. You will annul the agreement? The pressure almost crushes me, but this time, I do not relent. I know she is not using her true potential, but I do not care. She would betray the essence of the accord. With me? A devourer? I think not. I push back and unexpectedly feel my essence expand by a tiny bit. Perhaps I shall. Ariane. It's inevitable. We will help you face the other prince. We do not need you. The sovereign leans forward and turns her head to my right. We hear it first, and I suppose the sovereign must have felt it. It starts with a horn, but soon pipes join it, then merry drums. They rise in the blood moon sphere with a great clamor, both defiant and happy, a clear statement as shameless as it is friendly, for it cannot be coming with her approval. The queen walks towards the disturbance and I follow, grabbing the cage of flutterlings on my way, since they cannot move themselves and make their desire to know very loud. We approach a titanic opening into the crystal and face the dark sky of the sphere from the height of its capital palace. The balcony overlooks the metropolis thriving inside of the crater, and in the distance, a portal has opened. It would be large enough to let an old ship of the line through, with its masts and sail. Beyond, a blue sky can be seen. A multitude of fae cross the passage, singing and dancing and throwing petals around. Their music carries impossibly far, and for a fragment of instant, it smells of the sea and of a meadow in spring. The Lycians themselves are a strange lot, many humanoids and other satyrs or beauties made of bark. Beasts of burden carry pavilions and, in the case of a whale with feet, an entire gazebo on their back. Madmen juggle swords on fire, spells, or each other. A tall woman recites poetry while flowers bloom under her feet with each step she takes. Despite how far they are, I merely have to give one my attention to hear and see them as if they were right next to me. The lot is presided by a grotesquely obese man lying on a chair, moved by hundreds of laughing revelers who switch and change roles so fast it is a miracle he manages to stay aloft. He holds in his hand a golden goblet dripping wine with every step, but he is not the star of the show. That honor goes to a woman launching herself from the ground with a single step. She arches her back, extends her arms while her light brown hair forms a cape behind her, lithe limbs gliding through the air. She is genuinely floating. The entire orchestra of wandering fae, hundreds of them, take a deep breath. They play. The young one is born under the boughs of black trees. It is spring. Silvery flowers bloom under the moonlight. She is awkward and innocent, her feet unassured in a way only a master dancer can simulate. She stumbles against trunks and rocks with an agonizingly beautiful enthusiasm. Her steps grow more assured. She leaps, she struts, she leans by a lake and watches her reflection for the first time. The young one wears a close-fitting dress of red leaves over her pale skin. Her arms are lean yet strong. She saunters. Summer comes. The young one feasts from heavy fruits and stalks the underbrush, scaring gray birds away. She titters, the sound like rain falling on chimes. She is so silly, but she is getting better, and we can already see the predator in the grace of her gestures. Summer is at its zenith. The young one is a deadly huntress, her feet leaving no trace. We follow her, prowling the woods for prey. She rushes. She pounces. None can stand against her. The first of her prey falls, some beast hiding in a grove, and she drinks its heartblood under the light of the moon. The fresh offering drips down her carmine lips, dyeing them with the color of victory. I take a step back at this moment because I can feel a foreign influence in my mind, but also because I have never wanted to draw more than I do now. If I could immortalize those moments on paper, even just a sketch, oh, I could create masterpieces to damn a soul to despair. The seekers share my rapture, and I think I see why. Below the incredible dancer weaving her tail in the air, the other Lycians keep playing with a degree of mastery that would ruin opera forever to me if I cared more about perfection in art. There is something in the air, however, in the smirk of some of the players. It sends a shiver down my spine. Above us, the woman keeps creating vistas and dances. Ghostly echoes make her moves more ethereal. Her dance is both animalistic and impossibly graceful. I cannot resist. I am drawn in. Autumn comes. The young one hunts beasts with unmatched mastery. The other creatures fear her, though they do not know what they fear, for she is a shadow, a sting that leaves no witnesses. Only one contests her realm, an old, scarred bear. He has survived 1,000 challenges and readies himself to survive one more. Under the moonlit sky, they fight for dominion. The old bear has seen much and lived through it. The huntress is strong but naive. He plays her, outmaneuvers her and conserves his strength. The huntress loses patience and snarls, but then a leaf withers and falls before her. Autumn has come and winter will follow. Patience is a necessary tool. The huntress takes her time. She studies her opponent. The bear is old and experienced, but he is also scarred. She tests him. She circles him to find his limits. She prods him, expecting a trap and finding it. She learns when he is faking a weakness and when he is not. The two opponents battle much more evenly. The bear is forced to go on the offensive or risk being cornered. He is no longer used to it. He makes mistakes. She makes him pay. He bleeds and she smirks. He roars and she giggles. Finally the old bear knows his end is near. He charges her in a last-ditch attempt to fend off his demise. She meets him midway, easily jumping over his swipe. She passes over him, and at the apex of her ascent, a hunter's arrow pierces her heart. She falls, broken. Dead. The dream breaks. I recoil as if I had been smacked, but all my woes pale to the one of the sovereign. I assumed she could not feel. I was wrong. Whoever aimed that dance at her aimed to bite deep and bit deeply indeed. It tasted like the remnants of a forgotten past, brought back again to be murdered a second time. The balcony in front of her explodes out. Chunks of stone and crystal fly through the air, crashing into the buildings far below. The dust left behind covers the deathly silent assembly. The pressure from the sovereign makes me collapse against the balustrade. Even my Magna Arca cannot save me from her, suppressed as it is by her presence. I dare not look at the sovereign. It is the dancer's face that attracts all attention. She lifts herself from her corpse-like position like a blooming flower and salutes us. She pauses in the middle, the cascade of her hair falling strand by strand over a naked shoulder. She tilts her head. She is absolutely breathtaking. Her smile is rather vicious, however. "Another, Melody?" the woman asks. Her voice is to die for. Poor Jimena would be undone. Her words also carry a promise, one to bring a different sort of closure, but there is a condition. There is always a condition. The world holds its breath while the sovereign decides. Eventually, her terrifying gaze falls on us and I feel smothered, for she exerts little restraint. Leave. We are practically pushed out of the balcony and towards the exit. The flutterlings complain in their cage, which does not surprise me as they seem devoid of the instinct of self-preservation. As an afterthought, she sends Cadras after us. He appears consternated in an unusual display of emotion. We all move down the main crystal stairs and straight corridor of the keep with haste until we find more stone than crystal. Still, we do not slow. Only after we have reached the ground level and left through a monumental gate into a large, currently empty plaza do we finally stop. One of the chunks from the keep's upper strata fell here, squishing the building and its occupants. Lycians busy themselves clearing the debris with spells and sorrow. Some of the gladiators sit down where they are, complaining loudly. Machias flies and lands on my shoulder, happy that my armor finally feels comfortable. In the ensuing chaos, I almost miss Cadras' whisper. That was quite cruel. The short trip has not given him the time to recover. I realize we should not stay there and order the gladiators to form rank. Unfortunately, they are hungry, thirsty, and tired. I will have to find a place for them to rest before we can return to Void Moor, where I assume the next trial will be announced. I share my thoughts with Sanayat, but he is distracted. You know we were freed, puppet. I assume this is the Wandering Court. It is, he says, looking into the distance without expression. I follow his gaze. A woman approaches with two figures in tow, all wearing heavy robes. I recognize her as the dancer just from the supernatural way she sashays, every step an invitation to duet. She stops in front of my friend and places her hands on his broad shoulders. Her smile, which had been a sneer before, turns genuine, or at least as genuine as it can get for this strange race. Now that my attention is no longer taken by her story, the family resemblance is quite striking. My son, she sings, you have returned to us. Emotions spread from her like a perfume. She is delighted, relieved, but also concerned for the future. I had never seen such happiness on Sanayat's jaded traits. They stay unmoving while we sheepishly wait, or rather I do. Cadras and Cadiz do not appear to care much. Eventually, the emotions grow more subdued. Curiosity and amusement replace them as the woman inspects me, her deep amber eyes scintillating softly. And you must be Ariane. I have heard quite a bit about you. Sanayat my dear, why don't you introduce us? Ariane, It is my pleasure to introduce the high dancer Emerald of the Wandering Court, my mother. You know Zavea, of course, he tells me as the elfin lady removes her hood. The last person is a man of noble stature, tall, with grey hair though not through old age. His dark eyes watch us with impassibility. His resemblance to Sinead's mother would indicate that they are related. And this is Fanel, Sinead concludes. My son. Hello, Fanel. Father. HMMMMMMMMM. HMMMMMMM. He looks older than me. This is extremely awkward. I curtsy to mask my embarrassment. I am entirely uncomfortable with the current development. It is a pleasure to meet you, Ariane of the Nirari, Fanel says with a warm voice. Zavea mentioned your exploits, but she failed to mention your charms. Oh no, please do not court me, please someone let me jump into a lake of piping hot lava. Arg 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 arg. He looks like Sinead's older brother. Why is everything so awful? I see you take after your father, I inanely blabber. I wish there was a sun here so I could roast myself to sweet oblivion. The Lycians chuckle. Amaril exudes mirth, at my expense, no doubt. Right, this is wonderful, but could we move to another setting? My warriors need to recover, I say, to make it end. Amaril approves and her mood shifts again to anticipation. Of course. You must all be exhausted. Come, join our encampment while we prepare the revels. I let Sinead have his moment with his mother, walking behind but at the head of the procession. The streets of the greater city hum with nervous energy, every person discussing the coming celebrations with excitation. Apparently, it has been eons since a troop of the Wandering Court graced the Seekers with their presence. Making enlightens me by whispering into my ear, the experience only mildly disturbing. There are 6 large troops in the Wandering Court. Lady Emerald's is one of the most famous. It is said she can dance a sovereign to tears. Well, she just did. I think. I could not watch. The Wandering Court's carnival comes in sight soon enough, and their members drag my warriors to tents in order to rest, eat, and pursue some other activities if my ears are not mistaken. I am given an individual tent while Cadiz leaves with Cadris. To my surprise, I fall into slumber almost immediately. I wake up to music and laughter. Although my life is no longer governed by the sun, it appears my mind still requires some measure of rest. When I get out, the party is in full swing. Bands and performers delight the crowds with strange displays, forming clearings in a forest of pavilions. Strange games take place within the covered recesses. Moans of pleasure mix with the music and words in many tongues to form a peculiar cacophony, one that I do not mind much. Training starts tonight. Or rather, later today, Cadiz says with cold certainty. Activate your Magna Arca. I do so, and the purple eye opens on the sky above us. I feel someone's attention descending upon me. On a small throne in the distance, the obese man inspects me with attention while tearing into some honey-glazed haunch. I ignore him, for now. What do we do? I discussed our next move with the Sunny Prince while you were lying there, senseless and defenseless. We will regroup in Voidmoor to announce the result of the first trial and prepare for the next. Your rival Revas will be waiting for us, since he was the one who notified Lady Emerald. He was? I asked, surprised. Yes. Although he intends to kill you, he plans on looking merciful doing it. I would chafe, being underestimated so thoroughly. We are not being underestimated. He is merely playing several games at once, I correct. Cadiz shrugs, uncaring. After you are done with the diplomatic waste of time, we will travel to the Court of Blue for training. They have facilities that can help us, and their infiltrators will be of much use to teach you a thing or two. I already have a plan. I groan. But soon we are on our way through yet another portal and back to the gloomy streets of Voidmoor with a rested complement of warriors. The first thing I find is Pookie, the house ship moored nearby. She squeals when she sees us. I stare under and realize she has apparently given birth to a Tolst. The spheres are quite a wild place. Chapter 186. Titanic pillars of bluestone rise up into a strange fog, one I cannot pierce through with my senses. The ambient magic is so strong it saturates the air with its heady presence, overcoming the scent of crisp mountain air. We come across a group of Fey knights in shimmering armor the color of sapphire, their eclectic assortments of weapons dark and wicked. They look so insufferably smug, though it could simply be the pride that comes with completing training. Or simply a blue court quirk. I would not know. How does that work, anyway? I ask Savannah. The elfin princess blinks once, then her large orbs focus on me with a peculiar intensity. The aura memory wave locator? No. I do not know what that is. I meant the time dilation. Oh. Yes, an important piece of technology and the power upon which our safety is built. I could get into the details as they are quite fascinating, but unfortunately you would need to complete around 20 Earth years worth of advanced physics education first, and then the Blue Court Special Forces would have to cull you. That might be counterproductive. We are of one mind. Oh. But I can tell you that it relates to mass. Mass? I ask, flabbergasted. This place is much heavier on the outside. Our discussion is interrupted by the man guiding us clearing his throat rather tactlessly. I suppose it is not his first time dealing with the princess foibles. Sinead frowns. Please, Ariane, curiosity has killed enough cats. All right, I concede, grumbling. The Blue Court mastery of the passage of time fascinates me, despite the nature of my current situation. When I have more time, I would be interested in learning how this all works. In any case, they have certainly put it to good use. An open door to the side shows a room filled with training equipment, most of it showing signs of intense use. Servants carry the most damaged parts out, including an animated training golem so pockmarked it looks carved by a patient crafter. The Blue Court forces might be few in number, but their training is as perfect as they can make it thanks to their peculiar training facilities. When one might spend a decade practicing under the guidance of a master while only a year passes outside. The time difference between here and Earth must be truly staggering. A great opportunity, Ariane. It will take more than a few months to develop your true potential, Cadiz adds. Of course he would. How delightful, I grumble. I will have no complaints from you, young lady. You have spent far too many years thinking yourself a master of the art of war. I just mean for you to stop pretending. He frowns. I do not understand. You have the opportunity to approach perfection yourself thanks to my assistance, which I will provide freely and to the utmost of my abilities. Some would kill for the privilege. You do not strike me as someone who appreciates mediocrity in yourself or others, yet you resist me. I sigh, as I realize he misunderstands the source of my reticence. I know your guidance will push me to greatness, just as I have no doubt that you will put me through hell. That is correct. It concerns me because you are a maniac. Put it that way. I am looking forward to the destination, but certainly not to the journey. I will make it as exciting as I can. Oh, joy. Here we are, the major domo guiding us says. I cannot tell the difference between this room and any other, but it will suit our purposes. The training center has separate spaces for each team, and common areas where one may engage in friendly competitions and social activities between two sessions. His Highness Prince Sinead has requested a Master of Tactics, who will arrive shortly. Is there anything the lady would like as well? We were not informed of her preference. Would you like to try a training golem? I detect a hint of condescension in the man's voice, the sort of fatherly concern one has for a lost child who seems out of their depth. Cadiz misses the cue, of course. It would provide for a wider variety of styles to measure herself against. Well, how strong is the lady? We have several models. I saw her fight toe-to-toe with the Duke of Winter. Shock filters through the unctuous expression. On his own land, Cadiz finishes, unperturbed. The majordomo gives the appearance of consideration, but I already know the answer. I fear we have nothing quite fitting. A pity. Some of our Blady masters might be interested, however. Cadiz gives him a predatory smile, and I suddenly feel empathy for the first poor sods who will answer the call. We would love visitors, yes. Polearms wielders are especially welcome. The majordomo leaves us. Sevilla and her fiancé walk to the site to discuss the dragon hunt with the Daucatas, but I will not be joining them. Cadiz drags me directly to the arena. We will be working on several aspects. First, your technique, second, your Magna Arca, and third, your battle experience. All of those must be mastered by the time we return to Earth, or it will all be for nothing. Are you ready? As ready as can be. Then let us begin. Asterisk. All of the dragon hunters commit to the training with their full attention. The cycle of night and day is represented by a dimming of the light, and I understand why teams leave the space every month or so. The absence of sky will prove taxing, eventually. For now, I am too busy to contemplate a break. A tall warrior who possesses the timeless air I associate with Old Faye briefly examines Sinead's strategy so far and qualifies it as decent in an amateurish sort of way. Then Cadiz and I fully isolate ourselves so we can focus on bringing my abilities up to speed. To my surprise, Cadiz does not simply drown me under obscure and preposterous exercises. Instead, we go over each and every tool in my repertoire from my illusion spells including the combat-oriented Mirage, to the few offensive ones I have. Cadiz tests their limits, their range, their use. Nothing escapes his patient scrutiny. He deducts that I have been using them wrong, of course. You fight like a woman wielding a bundle of sticks, using each one without rhyme nor reason. Your tools must be forged into a single blade, each component indistinguishable from the other to form a harmonious whole. You were quite clear the last time you informed me of this. First of all, have you considered casting Promethine behind you? He replies, ignoring me. What do you mean? I ask, surprised. If you moved your arm forward, the foe will expect a directional offensive spell, while if the chains surge from behind you in multiple directions, they will take a moment to estimate their trajectories. You can alter those, can you not? Well, yes. Since you can dispel them whenever you wish, there is no reason not to make them more unpredictable. And so on, and so forth. The court provides a wand in lieu of my firearms. It lacks the kick, but will suffice for training. The more time-consuming test comes with the Magna Arca. The room is far from large enough to test its limits, even though it is larger than most of the Boston Fortress. We still learn that my control works equally well anywhere throughout the sphere when I am not actually fighting. When I am, my focus narrows to the space I occupy. In other words, I am not smart enough to use my own power to its full potential. I believe your assessment is wrong, Cadiz assures me. How so? Magna Arca is the purest expression of one's own essence. You cannot possibly wield a blade that cannot be wielded at all. You mentioned the power resembled your mental defenses? Yes. Do you have any issues controlling those? I freeze in my tracks. No. Then perhaps a similar approach would allow you to move the roots around more effectively, perhaps relying more on your instincts. Less conscious actions, more flow. We will try this method. It does not take long for me to grow more enthusiastic, especially when the time comes to let the statues out. Just like Cadiz had surmised, they can function independently if I do not focus on them too hard, instead letting the legacy of their makers move them as needed. I force back a sob when Dalton's statue gives Cadiz the old double tap, shooting him once, then another time with a concealed pistol just when the old monster thought himself safe. Of course, Cadiz is far too fast and canny to get caught so easily, but the old tactic reminds me of my lost vessel. The second aspect of the first, exploratory part of our training concerns range and positioning. Cadiz takes great care to test each of my weapons at different distances, including the wand. We also do some light spars, during which I am only allowed to use rows. After long sessions of practice and an entire day spent only making notes, Cadiz finally comes with a schedule. We also find out the definitive date of the dragon hunt. It will be 6 months from now, relatively speaking, and will take place on an isolated sphere considered neutral territory. It is when Cadiz shares his plan with me that I realize the implication of a strong time dilation. 5 years. We will stay here for 5 years. We will not. You will leave this place several times to relax and hunt. Sometimes, we must take a step back to realize we have been hitting our heads against a wall. He stops to consider. Did that metaphor work? I think so. Then I have made progress. Excellent. In any case, this is a unique opportunity for us to work in relative peace, so be sure not to squander it. The Court of Blue should have the best fighters with such a tool at their disposal. Ariane, first, they do have some of the best fighters, and secondly, the limit is set by the availability of mentors. You can spend a century bashing a target with a saber and you will get better at it, but that will not make you a good fencer. You need to perfect your technique in the crucible of adversity or you will never know its worth. The Court of Blue simply lacks a sufficient number of good teachers. He pauses for a moment. I know you do not mean it as an insult, so I will not take umbrage from your ignorance. I have been known as one of the best sword trainers in history, and I sincerely doubt someone else replaced me. Do you know any Cadiz lords? Lord Suarez and Lord Cerrone. I taught Suarez all he knows. Does he still stick to that one-strike philosophy of his? If you were referring to his Magna Arca. The boy has always relied on it too much. I hope he worked on his timing as well. As for Cerrone, I am glad to hear he made it to Lord. He was always more politically minded than was wise. You are getting sidetracked. Oh, my impatient pupil. You seem eager to resume training and I believe I made my point, so let us continue. With the tests finished, we begin in earnest. Half of the time is spent working on technique and technique alone, first with rows and then by progressively adding back more of my tools. He shows prodigious amounts of insight. Considering your soul blade primarily as a trick sword is a grave mistake. You have a whip sword, one that can and should extend and retract as often as feasible to keep the enemy on their toes. Any thrust can potentially end in their eyes. As for the fully extended blade, its tip can move at speeds that will cause it to crack, like a whip. You must use this as a constant threat to those who would try to keep their distance. We will be working on proper footwork as well. During our early spars, Cadiz slows down and intentionally makes mistakes to help me improve, and I do believe it works. His style reminds me of Octaves, the Nightblade Demaster. None of his movements are wasted and it mostly feels like he can read my mind and anticipate my actions before I do them. The reality is different. At any point of a duel, only a limited number of the actions you can perform will not result in your immediate demise. You have relied on your intuition and I salute your efforts, but you must also understand your enemies the old-fashioned way. A duel between experienced vampire warriors ends when one successfully overwhelms the other, placing them in the position where one can inflict an unavoidable blow. The task is difficult. You must corner them first. We will be working on longer sequences. Cadiz's brilliance does not simply reside in his own skill, he is also able to identify my flaws and provide inspired advice. Your unpredictability is a gift against dogmatic combatants, but you must narrow your focus until all of the actions you take, unexpected as they may be, place you in a more advantageous situation. In other words, you must surprise rather than merely confuse. An expected move that results in nothing is merely wasted. His advice is good and pushes me to cut useless flurries. He also insists on faster casting of my spells, focusing on only a few I would reach full mastery of rather than a wide selection. Night by night, I grow sharper and more relentless. If I have to fall back, I do so while casting promethine from unpredictable directions, the chain's trajectory more difficult to read. I shoot from the wand as part of an attack rather than between two exchanges. A short conversation with a blue court duelist leads to an interesting description of my style. Frustrating and relentless. You gave me no opportunity to develop my own technique. I did not get to fight properly. This is exactly as it should be, Cadiz notes with a pleased expression. And I hope so, because for all my efforts, I have yet to land a single blow on him when he fights properly. Even on the rare occasion Sanayat joins me against him for his own development, it feels like fighting against two rather than one, so competent Cadiz is at taking advantage of our lack of coordination. We will study group fighting later. You are still far from that stage, he tells me. The second half of our time is entirely dedicated to Magna Arca training. His first action leads me to believe that we will have a more relaxed time when he sits down and places a hastily carved chess set between the two of us. We are going to be playing chess, mostly because I am terrible at it. Well, so am I admit. You will be acting as the host for this event, he finishes. My confusion lasts until a contingent of blue court archers walk into the large arena, smirking in anticipation. They knock arrows and wait. Cadiz glares at me. Of course, if anything were to happen to me, I would deem you responsible. You will only use your Magna Arca. He pulls a stick with a comical wooden hand carved at the end. And if you lose the game or break any rules, I will slap you with this. Surely, you are jesting. No. I thought the first game would be easy when I create a thorn cocoon around the two of us. Unfortunately, Cadiz puts an immediate stop to it. I cannot see. Excuse me. I cannot see. I need light to see the pieces. You do not, I sputter, but he merely crosses his arms, and I know I will have to relent. I am training, not engaging in a contest of wit that benefits no one. We play and I lose the first round to an arrow taking out my king, cleaving the piece in half. Checkmate, Cadiz says. Then he slaps me with the hand. I even tried to dodge. Again. The issue is, of course, that I cannot detect the arrows once they're in flight. Those are blue court warrior archers, and even lords would have trouble intercepting the projectiles without warning. I am forced to follow the squad. It soon becomes clear that I am incapable of stopping them, but in order to keep the game going, they perform aggravating tricks like clipping my fingers or cutting holes in my training tunic without making me bleed. I somehow offset this by attacking them in return, preventing them from shooting me too easily. Snapping branches or roots grown under their feet yield some results, but never enough to finish a game in peace. Have you considered using thinner roots? Could you do that? K-Dix asks once. Well, I suppose. Only, thinner roots would get destroyed instantly. You need them to hamper your opponent, not hurt them or block them, at least not realistically. I believe speed would be preferable to impact. I admit he is right and get better results by harassing my foes, and then even more by letting the statues run amok. Unfortunately, it is still far from being enough. Either I focus on the game and get shot in the nails, or I do not, and I get slapped for moving a pawn in diagonal. I do make some progress in terms of flexibility, but we are still extremely far from turning my Magna Arca into the hell of thorns that will stop Nirari. So far, it can only dispatch weaker opponents en masse, and I have no need for that. Worse, I can either control the roots or the statues to great effect, but not both at once. On this specific aspect, we find ourselves at an impasse. In order to keep my spirits up, Cadiz recruits the help of one Master Yira, spear instructor. He is one tough nut to crack, but I manage to defeat him in most of our engagements, relying on my superior abilities and what I can get from my Magna Arca. You two are pathetic board game players, but you sure know how to fight, he remarks. You should play while being shot at. Not only could I do that, but I could beat both of you at once and within 20 movements. I grumble and admit he might be correct. Unfortunately, my attempts at revenge fall short when I am tasked with defeating him without the Magna Arca. For some reason, he can read through my mirage even though he has no ability to pierce through the illusion. Instincts. I have fought and survived through 100 battles, young wanderer. When you get to be as old as me, death and danger become old companions. I can tell when they are coming. Ugh, why is it always old monsters all the time? At least, downtime provides some amusing distractions, including games of luck and agility with the other trainees. After what felt like 3 months of this, we move out for the first time. You need a distraction, Cadiz assures. And so do I. We leave the training world through a series of secluded corridors, the walls humming with unknown power, or at least unknown to me as the Court of Blue keeps its secret well guarded. The passage leads out onto a square overlooking the windswept glades of the sphere, far below us, while the rarefied air of the airy buffets our faces for the first time in what feels like an eternity. After so long, the crisp wind wakes me up, while the pure light feels strangely neutral rather than daunting. Nevertheless, I would have preferred the night. The Blue Court has chosen a tall, narrow mountain as its home base, and most of its members live there, in troglodyte dwellings carved into the very rock. A chandelier above us has fully merged with a large stalactite, lending the decoration a natural appearance. I hope magic was involved in its creation, because I dare not contemplate the time it would have taken to complete this project otherwise. Enjoy your vacation, Cadiz says, then he leaves with Yura. Sinead takes his leave to find Sevilla as well while Cadras departs without a word. We have both been extremely focused, with little chances to communicate beyond training-related matters. I thought we might have gotten closer at the end of the winter expedition, yet there remains a barrier I have set and am unwilling and unable to take down. Sinead has so far respected my desire for distance, and a treacherous part of me wishes he hadn't. I still miss the boisterous, scandalous rake. I also realize that he will not feel free to flirt and be his witty self so long as I harbor a deep distrust of him. The ambivalence of those feelings upsets me even more because they are unusual in my kind. My emotional world tends to be simple and well-defined, none of that half-lover half-person I wish to eat sort of confusion. What a dreadful sort of affair. Are your thoughts clouded? I caught the scent of Amaryl before she arrived, meaning she allowed me to do so. The dangerously attractive Lycian stops by my side, her gaze following the contours of distant peaks. I feel her emotions clearly, anticipation, joy, and a sort of amusement that comes with young and refreshing things. She was clearly looking for me. Would you mind a little company? No, I reply, realizing that nothing will be gained by dwelling on Prince Sunny. Perhaps sensing my turmoil, she links with me and guides me, arm in arm, to a nearby balcony. This section of the mountain holds many parks and restaurants, the mood enhanced by musicians and works of arts. The blue ones seem to prefer sober, streamlined works with a strong abstract bend. I realize that it is carefully designed to induce relaxation. Amaryl's amusement bubbles to the surface, betraying a curious amount of giddiness. I look askance, and she explains. Locking arms is such a strange custom. I like it. Oh, I had not realized it was so unusual. Oh, there are a few courts that favor it. I am merely enjoying the experience. Say, my son mentioned you had difficulties with an aspect of your power. Perhaps you would allow me to help? I frown and feel anger at Sinead, though I admit it is not entirely rational. Ugh, why am I being so emotional? Is Lycian blood increasing my sensitivity? Forgive me if I am being intrusive, she continues, transmitting concern, then her concern gets deeper to the point of anguish. It happens very suddenly, and I am left recoiling in shock. She sighs. My son should not have challenged Revas so soon. His rationale, that it would take the older prince by surprise, is foolish. Revas always expects aggression. All of the council members develop paranoia as a survival trait. He should have waited for his allies. For us. For me. Now, I see him risk his life so soon after he has returned to me. I am afraid of losing him again, just as my heart has not healed from my previous grief. Do you understand? I think I do. I think you do not. He knew it. He took the risk for you. She breathes deeply, shedding the frustration and anger I felt building within her heart. You have saved him once, and I do not simply mean his life. You have seen what our kin have endured under yours. The burden of duty is a way to change a person, but you have provided what he needed the most, hope. Someone to trust. And he returned it well, I hiss. He fell into the usual trap. Old ones think they know better and try to keep flowers in glass houses. He has wronged you, and I am not here to convince you to forgive him. It is between the two of you. I refuse to intervene in this matter. You do? You are both old enough to handle your differences, one way or another. No, what I want is for you to survive the coming ordeal. And yes, both of you. I will do whatever I can to ensure your success. Right now, it means helping you harness the expression of your alien soul. You want to help me with my Magna Arca? You? A Lycian? You forget. This strange power of yours relates to concepts, and us old nobility understand concepts like no others can. Tell me of yours, and we will see if we cannot build a story out of it. The concept behind my Magna Arca? Yes. I stare into her brown eyes, feeling her emitting patient understanding. I do not know how she can live exposing her emotions so freely. It feels incredibly constraining. Do I trust her? More importantly, can I afford not to take her help? My natural distrust, only reinforced by the sphere's treacherous environment, begrudgingly deserts me. Exposing my weaknesses here to allies of fortune does not matter compared to the daunting task that is Nirari. He is the priority. I cannot afford to hold anything back. Each of our bloodlines was born with an idea. Might is conquest. Most of us Fae are content with our spheres, preferring them to others, so it is not a notion I am familiar with. How do you see conquest? I defined it when I ascended to what I am now. It is to build something together with the people I appreciate, against all odds. To create my kingdom where we can be ourselves through violence if we must, safe and free to pursue our various goals. I will use the power granted by the Watcher to build it myself, not wait for someone else to deliver it. I feel surprise and pleasure radiate from the strange woman. How pure and hopeful. I would have never imagined it, considering your taste for blood, but yes, I can see it. I can feel it. You want that little haven very much, and you have worked hard to do so. It would be a mistake not to take you for a driven individual. You do want to build and develop and have done so well, but now you must protect those who make up your dream. Since you have a well-defined purpose, how is your Magna Arca reflecting that? What do you mean? I ask. An expression of pure essence reflects one's vision. You can no more escape your nature than we can, despite your strange, alien origin. Understanding how your power reflects your vision will lead you to the improvements you need if you are to succeed, and I am sorry to say, if you wish to survive the dragon hunt. She made sense in a peculiar sort of way. We have time, still, thanks to our host. Come. Walk with me. Tell me your story. Are you sure? I am not some hero from your tales. My son tolerates many flaws in his partners, but tediousness is not one of them. Do share. And so I do, talking about my story so far, though only in broad strokes. She does not need to know about my personal experiences. She does, however, have me expand upon two things, my allies, and pitched battles. As we walk through vertical gardens loaded with azure flowers, I sometimes feel as if Dalton's intonations or Jimena's determined tone just finished ringing in my ears. Sometimes, I can smell the smoke of fires or the acrid scent of spent powder. I can taste blood on my tongue, my own and some of others. I hear echoes of joy and despair, and the longer I go on, the more real my reminiscence grows. I remember facing the herald whose horn I stole. I remember fighting through the streets of Marquette. The story comes alive through Amaril's presence, and patterns start to emerge. I gather allies, people from different origins and with different agendas who share common values. Together, we face those who would kill or suppress us. Our differences matter, but not as much as a common goal to live our lives how we see fit. I have indeed been practicing my ethos long before the rise to ladyship crystallized it into words. But then, how is my power related? I think I may know. I have been acting incorrectly. I now believe the statues and roots are not fully mine, or rather, they are, but they are animated by instincts and memories conquered from or granted by those I came across and whose essence I took. The conclusion is surprising, yet it makes sense in a strange way, though it goes against everything I have experienced about vampire powers. I do not need better control. All those successes I have achieved, I could never have achieved them alone. I need to let go, and trust those memories I have collected. Amaril nods when she sees I have come to a realization. I hope your epiphany will lead to success, as sometimes, stories are just stories. If it turns out to be the case, I will help you again. Amaril does not abandon me in the middle of the city. Instead, she guides me towards the handful of gladiators I have elected to keep around and not sent back to Voidmoor to take care of Pookie. Oh, and the cartel thing. They are undergoing training as well, but for them it has only been a few weeks instead of our 3 months, as they have been relegated to lesser training facilities. Makius is here as well, being his usual facetious self. I spend some time with them playing strange games of luck, then I return to training with renewed passion. My first attempt at changing the Magna Arca ends catastrophically when one of the roots upends the chessboard. Rather than growing angry, Cadiz encourages me instead. I see you are attacking the problem from another angle. We will practice with lighter exercises while you find your marks again. As expected, my control over the Magna Arca collapses completely when I am not trying to direct it. After a few attempts, I do realize that, indeed, if I do not focus on them, the statues move much more naturally as they do inside of my mind palace. Progressively, I try to find the sweet spot between order and autonomy. The roots and statues must follow directions, but I cannot be controlling them directly. The task is made excessively hard by the level of ruthless aggression they display when I make no effort. Even the archer squad decides to withdraw at the beginning. Yet despite all those difficulties, I know I am on the right path. Nights blur into weeks, then into months. Under Cadiz's guidance, I keep progressing at an exhilarating pace. He is truly a great mentor despite his poor social graces. Finally, after 1 year of effort, I am ready for the next step. You have dramatically improved. You are a much cleaner fighter than when we first began, and so the time has come to focus on the next step of training, giving you experience fighting a superior opponent. My Magna Arca is called Blade's Edge and it is unfortunately a strike type. Nevertheless, it should still help you. You give names to Magna Arca? Yes, it helps to memorize and understand them. I named yours Garden of the Thorn Queen, for example. Poetic, but I would rather choose myself. Speaking of superior opponents, you never mentioned what Nirari's Magna Arca was. Ah yes. I call it the Last Dun of Babylon, both a domain and avatar ability. It grants him an aura that empowers him and weakens vampires through light magic. I understand that it grows with every foe he has ever killed. Wait. Much like yours, it is an infinitely growing ability, and yes, he has had 3,000 years to feed it, and yes, I could not defeat him the last time the two of us met in battle centuries ago. What? I see I should have led with that. I have never seen you so committed. It does what? Chapter 187 Cadiz Magna Arca is a strike type. It allows him to conduct a series of fast, powerful, and particularly vicious strikes over a period of several seconds. I find its use redundant since I can barely follow him when he's not trying. It does not stop him from abusing it during our spars. Those are disheartening, both physically and metaphorically. I fail to see the point since even blocking the blade ends up shattering either my wrist or shoulder, something few have ever managed to do. If I block, I am eventually tossed aside like a rag doll and skewered before I can recover. If I try to counter, he avoids me with ease and defeats me on his next strike. Dodging is impossible at this stage. I still try my best and sometimes, I believe it is my mind he is training more than my technique. Cadiz expects Nirari to overwhelm me, not least because he is my sire and there will always be remnants of fear in my heart. He prepares me for it as best as he can. Have people given up on your training before? I ask him one day as I am regrowing fingers. To my surprise, he appears more affected by this than by the colorful language I sometimes aim at him in occasional moments of frustration. French remains a favorite. I have always done my best to train my followers to the utmost of my abilities, so that we may walk that path together. I hope that an improved focus would bring more people to my side. That we could form a family of like-minded people encouraging each other in wholesome emulation. Somehow, it never lasted. You call what you are doing to me wholesome emulation? I ask with a laugh. He sulks, or rather, I offended him more than I expected. In fact, he appears genuinely hurt. You need a special blend to make a master, Cadiz. They must have the arrogance to believe themselves great and the humility to accept they are not the greatest, at least not yet. If I were here for a vague sense of greatness, and not because I wish to grow strong enough to defeat a de facto demigod, I do not know if I could have endured for so long. One can only hit their head against the wall of your invincibility so long before they realize that no amount of effort will bridge that gap. I am not invincible. If no one except Nirari can defeat you, for all intents and purposes, you are. This seems like a lazy and pessimistic perspective on life. You are a progenitor, Cadiz, born with powers most of us will never match. I can only hope to equal you one day because of my bloodline and the presence of a dragon. For many of us, to compare ourselves to you will only lead to disappointment, and this is what your training does day after day. However, there will be folks who care about nothing but perfection. You must have met some. They left. Then they left to pursue their own path. It is not as sad as you think, and when you return, perhaps they will come see you and share their progress. Yes. That would be nice. If it is any comfort, I promise to keep training alongside you. Even if we have defeated Nirari. Yes. I believe I would enjoy that. And now, I see you have regrown all of your fingers and that we may resume practicing proper parries. It never stops. Due to the potency of Fey blood, I only have to feed once every 2 weeks despite the dramatic energy expenditure. I remember the constant thirst when I was first remade. It drove me insane with its unceasing urgency. When I grew away from fledgling, I could go a day, then 2 without feeding. Masters only need to drink once a week if the hunt is good enough. I wonder how long I could last without the constant training and occasional unmangling of my innards. Between the lack of sun and the time between donations from curious warriors, the spheres themselves have acquired an atemporal quality that I am not sure I enjoy. Even the cycle of seasons is cancelled in the training world since only weeks have passed outside. To avoid the burden that comes with repetition, we leave the compound to attend various events. In the entertainment area of the Blue Palace, the party never stops. At any point of time, there are several teams coming out after weeks of intense and relentless training, high on aggression and the euphoria that comes with their own progress. The Blue Court are a strange lot, and Sevilla is stranger still, set apart from their numbers by her love of magical theory. Blue nobles as a rule share alien, elfin traits, and cruel tendencies in their games and, if I understand the gladiators' comments, their lovemaking. Their arrogance stems from a deep sense of superiority. They boast a strange grace and devious combat arts backed by magic as all of their warriors cast spells. I have not yet faced one of their squads in battle, but Sinead has as part of his own training, and he returned annoyed if victorious. I am not the only one making progress. Indeed, Amaril has taken her son under her wing and has encouraged him to rely on his dancer's heritage to develop himself. The flame of his aura has changed, more subtle and biting now, to match his more elegant movements. I beat him in the few spars we share, but I can see he has grown even more evasive and he favors devastating, decisive counters. After 2 years of training, I have merged my style into a harmonious whole, though there is still room for improvement. Interestingly, I have a new spell I can use in combat situations. The old ones find their use, especially the feint spell, which shows an illusionary double of me. Promethine becomes a staple due to its significant potential against strong targets. Even Cadiz must be cautious of its many chains. Heartseeker is harder to manage, though it will help me against multiple opponents. Some other spells are more situational. Flay is stopped by armor, so it will be mostly useless against Mirari, but Shatter and Shred will be of use against the more delicate and magical items he may have. Polar Midnight is virtually useless against another vampire, though Fae fear it, and humans will as well. My new spell is a variation on the Blood Bolt. I call it the Salvo. The Salvo has many flaws. It takes time to cast, requires so much concentration I cannot use feint, and even the most inept caster will feel the magical build-up. Nevertheless, the result is beautiful enough to justify its ridiculous requirement. Salvo launches a powerful scattered barrage of bolts that will demolish all but the most durable of shields, and the projectiles travel fast enough to be difficult to avoid for even limber foes. The first time I use it on Cadiz, he is forced to use his Magna Arca, or lose. He no longer lets me cast it if there is any risk he will be in the blast radius, and I take this as the compliment and show of respect it is meant to be. During the second year, I perfect my technique and train with various masters invited for the occasion. Once news of our prowess travels, Blue Court's Blady masters and even a prince come to see if we do deserve the fuss. I lose against the prince after he uses a tool that cancels magic to take me off guard, following which Cadiz gives him a sound thrashing. The haughty noble and myself are left glaring at each other at the end, drinking mulled wine from cups and throwing snide comments at each other's reliance on toys and brute force, respectively. I am not quite sure why, but old ones tend to criticize me for using my raw abilities as if centuries of experience were not an unfair advantage as well. Preposterous. In the third year, we start practicing group fighting to see if I can use my Magna Arca with my allies around. Despite some scraped armor and bruised ego, it works wonderfully. We discover that my allies can somehow direct the thorns, or at least they part to let them through. We also discover that my subconscious enjoys grabbing Sinead's heel while he jumps, mistakenly smashing a branch in his belly mid-lunge and other facetious little things. Silly unconscious mind. Nevertheless, I have made significant progress towards operating with a team. Makias returns on occasion to practice, usually spending a day inside and a day out, so he only participates on occasion. I cannot blame him. Training of this nature goes against his own trickster instincts, but we do make sure I cannot harm him and he knows what I am capable of. Cadras remains the odd one out. The Seeker commits to the training with as much energy as us, but while Sinead learns tactics and I focus on combat, Cadras does his best to control his crystal powers better, to the point that he can selectively exclude me from its deleterious aura. The level of commitment he is capable of is simply staggering, even to me. How can you keep working alone, night in, night out? I ask him as he recovers from his latest attempt, disheveled and almost feverish. Cadras does not speak for a while, but I know he's considering rather than ignoring me from the way his torso faces me, and his eyes wander. John does the same, sometimes. We have time in abundance, so I do not press him. I will be joining you until my mother sees it fit to recall me, most likely after the challenge is brought to its conclusion, and provided I survive. I cannot let my weakness dishonor her, so I will do my best to improve." He looks up, pink eyes hollow and cold. "You can call upon your nature to gain power. So can your strange kin and the Prince of Summer. I will fight with the abilities I was given." A brief pause, then he took a step forward. "I have never operated outside of seeker squads. Make no mistake, we have been designed to complete our assessment, but that is the issue with a specialized tool. They lack flexibility. I had never realized how constraining this was until I lived by your side." He sighs, and turns away. "This was a mistake. Leave me. I must return to my training." I depart to my side of the training hall without a word. He is clearly suffering, yet at the same time I am not sure how to proceed without endangering the team's coordination. I would rather leave the emotional aspect to people more patient and subtle than me, such as Emeril. I would only be interested in Kadra's state of mind if I intended to eat him. For the taste. I also managed to take down Cadiz for the first time, before he triggers his Magna Arca. Following a complex sequence of movements culminating into a really good blind feint, I abort a spell he would have dodged and claw his face off instead. The bleeding progenitor almost cries tears of joy, and his excitement reaches new heights. Unfortunately, so does the difficulty. During the 4th year, we slow down, and I realize that we will not use the time to its maximum. Even the frequent breaks and the entertainment we see no longer suffices to dispel the deep unease that comes with being cloistered for so long. We must escape the confines of this place. I expected Sinead to discuss our options, but he agrees wholeheartedly. We need training in the appropriate environment anyway, Purport, something even the Court of Blue cannot provide. We will move to another sphere and prepare for the hunt. We know more now. Yira will brief us on the proceedings. Is Yira our main source for intelligence now? I believe you have Cadiz to thank for that, as they have grown quite close over the, years. Time is such a strange concept here. No wonder the Blue Court folks tend to waste mine when we are outside. I find Cadiz's kinship with Yira interesting considering the old man has never mentioned, or even given any hint he was interested in intimacy. I am pleased that he would find someone to spend time with, however. Soon, we do leave, still having over a week left before the hunt gathers. The first priority is a celebration of our progress. The gladiators who have stayed come as well, their eyes bright with pride. Or at least I assume so, given that 2 of them possess the compound variety and I have never learned to read those. We move to a secluded villa in the entertainment district prepared by Sevilla, and gather around a central table in an open garden under the light of the local stars. Lanterns cast light over dishes and drinks, all strange and designed to accommodate a variety of tastes and, I assume, digestive systems. It was wise of Sinead to organize this celebration. I come to this conclusion naturally when I inspect the guests. We have met several times during training, however the gladiators have not enjoyed the benefits of time dilation and a chasm has formed between us. We always were a diverse group. Now, we need some measure of unity. I realize I should have done it, then dismiss my regrets immediately. Sinead has taken the lead on this plan, and I rightly prioritized combat prowess. One cannot achieve everything at once. Let Prince Sonny carry the weight of leadership. For once it does not involve drinking, seducing, and a heist. At least, I think so. Ladies, gentlemen, other beings of indeterminate gender. I'm a man, Noel protests, his fly head bobbing over thin shoulders. Dancer signs he is male as well. I notice he has armor over the black chitin of his skin. It gives him a more statuesque and less horrifying appearance. Unlike Noel, who wears a doublet, and looks like the tarot card of a Baron of Hell. Very well then. Let me all congratulate you on the successful end of your training. Now, we know that perfection cannot be attained, and especially not in such a short amount of time, yet I am still proud of each and every one of us, for we are much closer to this unattainable goal than when we began. I want to thank each and every one of you here for helping me survive and perhaps even reach the hallowed heights of the Summer Council. It could have started better, he concedes with a smile, and we chuckle. But we made allies along the way, and nothing is done until the last trial is concluded. Now, you have come here with different expectations and for different reasons. I acknowledge that, and I say, this is fine. My brother demands full obedience from a contingent of loyal court retainers. This is not my path. It cannot be my path. My mother wonders the spheres dancing stories alive. I have myself walked many spheres, made friends and enemies among them. This is the vision of summer I wish to embrace, the same you are seeing around you. Friends gathered in banquet in the cool evening air, travelers from far away gathered for a celebration. The taste of sweet wine on our tongue. To me, summer does not need to be pavilions and horns and the arrogance of superiority. We all carry a piece of summer within us, even those who prefer the cold, for do they not also seek warmth? I have spoken enough. Rejoice. Be merry. Take pride in each other's company and your own efforts. Tomorrow is another day, but tonight, we celebrate the moment. Cheers. Cheers, we reply. Feeling in a good mood, I find color sticks and enough papers to draw the likeness of all guests while Sim of the Red takes out a flute, playing a happy aria. Her four hands dance on the wood. I manage to make no more alien than repellent, and he clutches the drawing to his chest with emotion. Even Caddis folds the paper with reverence after I am done. You are certainly proficient at causing emotions where there should be none, Ariane of the Nirari, he begrudgingly admits. I am not sure I like it. Do you regret feeling more? I ask, curious. No, he confesses after a pause. I just wonder why it had to be longing. I am sorry for you, Caddis. I hope you find a way to experience other emotions as we do. If it is any comfort, you have the eternity to do so. Not if my mother summons me back. Perhaps she will not, I retort, though my idea is not founded on any evidence. Perhaps you have a chance to forge your own way. What we sacrificed can never be ours again. I lost my human life and all that it entailed, but I built myself another one and have come to love it even more. I do not know what your future entails, I only know it should be yours if you manage to seize it. Perhaps you are right, he agrees after a pause. Perhaps you are full of wind and images like the others. I suppose it is up to me to find out. For what it's worth, good luck. I return to drawing and manage a good impression of Emerald's smile, though I discover she is too complex to draw in her entirety. She loves the illustration and thanks me warmly. You might go far. Here, have my pen, she says, and hands me a golden ash-colored one. I use it to draw, finding that it gives off the color I want without prompt. Those Lycians have all the best gear. After some time, the party expands when the Blue Court archers and a few trainers join us. We play more games of address, with Machias winning a majority of them. I find that I enjoy my time with others despite our differences. We spend another week training in force, then the time comes for the hunt proper. In a cycle the length of which only scholars can predict with any degree of accuracy, the time comes for the oldest of dragons, simply called the Old One, to return to roost. During that time, he will be ritually hunted and slain, only to be reborn later and resume his migration over the skies of many worlds. The hunt itself is a deeply traditional exercise with no specific gains beyond bragging rights, though they have their importance around here. Nevertheless, the dragon does not really die at the end, merely going into slumber, and the winners return to their occupation, if there are any. Indeed, it appears the last few cycles have had no success. The Old One expects brilliance from prospective hunters. It is not enough to reach him. You must impress him as well, Emerald explains. But first, you must beat others to his lair. Since the latest hunts have failed, he has not moved location. We can use our knowledge of past attempts to plan for this one. Your training in the past week serves this purpose. I listen with rapt attention, and we get to planning. The portal opens on a vast field crowded with tents and pavilions, some as tall as buildings. Music fills the air while the scent of food and perfume saturate my nostrils. Colorful pennants, flags, and clothes provide a clashing foreground to the sober green of the forest and the gray of distant mountains. Our group is one of the last to arrive, and we move to the edge of the encampment. From there, I can see the edge of the nearby forest. Those are old trees with ancient, gnarled trunks. The shadows feel deeper under their boughs. I can see the distant glint of fangs and webs hanging from a branch, moving in the wind like an ethereal shroud. The forest denizens are none too happy about LeFay's return. I am happy about LeFay's return. We can eat them. No, bad Artie. Remember the plan. No eating my allies, even though they smell so very delectable. We set up quickly, using enchanted gear that mostly deploys itself and that I would drown a convent to keep with me back on Earth. No sooner have we gathered that a fanfare trumpets towards us, even as some of our own tents are yet to rise. The Lycians near us clear the way before a large procession of warriors led by a familiar figure in golden armor, his fiery beard glittering under the sun. He has elected to keep his sun-gorged mail, but adopted a green tabard over it, quite likely for aesthetic reasons rather than for any desire for stealth. His second is here as well, wearing black scale like last time. Her infernal red hair and red skin clash with the pastoral background in an interesting way. I know from her smile that she anticipates killing me with relish. I look forward to her attempt, though I do not look forward to wasting the sweet nectar of her essence as it leaves her broken, lifeless corpse because I must stick to the plan. Ugh. My brother, Revas greets with a glorious smile, arms spread in a gesture of all-encompassing affection. It delights me to see you today. I hope you had a pleasant time preparing. Did you find your mother without delay? I did, brother. Thank you for finding her. Of course, think nothing of it, Revas generously allows. I expect you at your best. No matter what, our respective performances will reflect on the glory of our court, because we hunt for summer. And summer is the season of war, they finish at the same time. The two princes exchange pleasantries and compliments with the utmost certitude that one will kill the other before the year is done, for a certain definition of year. Meanwhile, their followers stand around with solemn attention, including me. Although I merely pretend to pay attention to their exchange, blah blah blah, platitudes. Worthless chatter. We should hunt already. Revas followers are all summer court nobles dressed in hunting leathers with enough similarities to pass as uniforms. Meanwhile, we are the motley crew. I complain in my heart that I always tend to end up on the side of the underdog, only to remember that I have been working for the vampire government for the past 40 years. Perhaps it is just a matter of who, rather than what. Sinead certainly feels less pompous and false than his blood relation. In any case, the difference could not be clearer, an impression reinforced by the fact Revas intentionally came while our camp was still in disarray, yet late enough that the interrupted setup could be mistaken for slovenliness. The absolute cur. In a way, I admire the Lycians for their elaborate pettiness. Even Revas' apparent generosity serves to reinforce his aura while distracting Sinead with apparent kindness. Every gesture they make serves several purposes in an elaborate dance. Revas' kindness does not just destabilize, it promotes a certain personality among his peers, and being memorable improves his standing in the order of succession. Similarly, the training collaboration with Sevilla shows Sinead's powerful yet diverse backing. So many games with unspoken rules. I would feel right at home if I were not missing so much context. Finally, the scrumptious one's separate and the more obnoxious of two princes returns to whatever fancy quarters he picked for himself, perhaps a pyramid to fit his ego. We are left with little to do, so I join Cadiz in practicing breathing exercises. Our meditation is short-lived, however. At midday, a deep thrum shakes the air around us. It has started. The entire camp holds still as the sky seems to split open, night and stars popping through the aperture of some impossibly wide portal. A wave of magic washes over us until it feels I could summon winter with a word, and Sinead could do the same. I take a deep breath and gather inexplicable sense I do not know how to qualify, then night falls. Or rather, there is an eclipse. A vast silhouette covers the sun from us, casting a deep shadow over the entire glade. For a moment, my mind struggles to reconcile what I see with the limits of what I believe possible. A triangular head appears first, titanic horns like old oaks jutting out from its side over a jaw that could smash a fortress gate open, then a sinuous body covered in bronze scales, 4 limbs with talons like spires. Heat radiates from the colossal form. He turns the air around into a kaleidoscope of twisting volutes where other shapes come to dance like fading dreams. Its armored body melts into the heavens until I cannot tell where the sphere ends and he begins. Then, after I have given up on comprehending the dragon, he spreads his wings, and night truly falls. He is impossibly massive. He has no right to be flying. Watcher save me, he has no right to be moving at all. I have taken strolls on smaller hillocks. The dragon flaps his wings and the pennants and flag shudder from the tempestuous blast, expanding outward from the camp circle. Dust fills my nostrils. The dragon roars, and I can hear nothing else, and do not believe I will experience another sound ever again. And then it flies away. It takes me a long moment to come back to my senses, and an even longer moment before the majesty of the beast disappears enough, and I realize he made me completely forget I was even thirsty. It is a feat that nothing had managed until now. We are supposed to hunt this? I ask, aghast. Now you understand why the hunt is ritualized, Sinead comments with an amused grin. Shall we get our mounts? I look again at the titanic being even now circling among the clouds. It is the most majestic creature I have even laid my eyes on. I am going to bite it. Tope continued,